Hello. All right, let's fix that right away. My name is Luke Derry. I am the organizer for the local Google developer group. Tonight we're going to be looking at Polymer and Cordova and how you can go from zero to prototype app in zero or nothing flat. We'll be looking specifically at how Polymer can help you bootstrap an application and look at how it can integrate into your ideas and help you do prototyping in a rapid way. If you're interested in the Google Developer Group, we meet every first Tuesday, so tomorrow actually, October 7th I think is what tomorrow is, and we'll be going over, we'll be at American Underground in Raleigh, and we'll be going over the Chromecast API, and also we'll take a look at, I received an Android TV after Google I/O, so we'll look at that also. If you are interested and you're watching this live, the link to the event, this Hangout, you can join. I'd love to have people interactively participating in this conversation. Also, I believe if you're watching the stream, there is a question and answer app, probably somewhere off to the right, that you can also participate with. I'd love to have questions to deal with as we go. I really do hope that this will be more of an interactive experience for everybody involved. Looking forward to Startup Weekend this coming weekend. If you are participating in that, obviously I would love to give you a priority for your questions, so hopefully we can get those addressed. I will be demonstrating some of the mobile portions of this with an Android phone. Cordova does have the ability to allow you to present iOS, BlackBerry, and a whole bunch of other options as far as the compilation goes. Android is what I'm familiar with, so we'll be going with that, but look at the documentation for Cordova and some of the build flags that you can use for that. I'm hoping that this comes through. The mobile phone that I will be using is here. I'm seeing it a little blurry, and I'm not sure if it's because of the brightness or the video stream, but just know this is not integral to the demonstration as much as just seeing that it goes to the phone. Let's see here. All right. And without that, we will go ahead and do some screen sharing here. So I'd like to share first off the two things that we're going to be using tonight. Polymer is a project from Google that is looking at the future of the web. So it's primarily looking at web components, but it's a little more than that. It also gives you some abilities that you may not have on top of web components to streamline prototyping and things like that. We're hoping that you can see down here that they're showing that you can build an app in 30 minutes. We'll kind of hope that we can go over some of the basics and move into more complex things. But this type of introductory information for Polymer has been dealt with actually in a Google Developer Group meeting, and also the Triangle JS group. Myself and Kyle Buchanan both presented on this very topic, more of an intro. And then additionally, we're going to be looking at Cordova. And the instructions and things, if you didn't get a chance to install this or Node, don't rush to try to get this all done tonight. You can wait till after this and just kind of absorb what's being said. But primarily with Cordova, you're going to download it through the Node Package Manager (npm). And if you click on the download button, it actually directs you to the command line interface. And I'm not going to go through this. It's a fairly straightforward setup. The one gotcha I'll let you know is, and I've documented it in the repo for this presentation, is that you probably do want to update your Android SDK if you're going to do this, and or alternatively any of your other SDKs for the other environments. But it's pretty easy to install Cordova globally, or also you can do it on your project using npm. Let's see, make sure I'm displaying the right thing. And then once you get Cordova installed, assuming that you have all the dependencies that you need, it's pretty straightforward to create a new application using the command line. If you're not familiar with the command line, if you're doing mobile or web development, I would recommend just introducing yourself to, on the Mac it's the terminal, which you can't see, I guess, because I'm not sharing it. Let's see here. Will do. Let me just share my entire desktop here. All right. So on the Mac, of course, it's the terminal. On Windows and other environments, it's going to be different. So I'm not going to go over the differences, but obviously, if you have questions or have trouble, feel free to ask, and we can discuss. But it's, as I pointed out in here, the ability to create an app just by way of demonstration here. So I created a fake test directory here so you can see how easy this is. So Cordova, create, and then we can foo code. So these different things create. So it creates a namespace. Oh, I forgot the. There we go. The foo code creates a folder named foo code. com.bootcamp.polymer is kind of a namespace for the app, and foo code is how your app will be called when it's actually on the phone. And I will admit right up front to not being a Cordova expert, so if you have questions about that, there are some really good resources here in the triangle. Carlos Santana being one of them. He's a pretty big name in a lot of the tech groups, so just look him up. There's many other people that have participated, even in the Google developer group, that also work on that project. But if you do this, and so there's all it takes, and you'll see in here it's created a folder based on what I named it, and then there's some default directories and things in here. I'll be using brackets as the editor. Code editors is probably one of the biggest debates that people have. Which one's better? Which one's more suitable for specific cases? I'm just picking this one because it happens to be on my system. So if you have an alternative that's better, I'd love to hear about it. If not, then I recommend brackets. It's brackets.io is the website, and it's a pretty clean editor. But you can see here, this is kind of the basic. This is not the directory that I just created, but this is the basic layout that you'll see in there. You'll see the directory and then a config XML, which contains a lot of your Cordova configuration. You can update the details here. And then there's some other directories we're not going to really mess with tonight. I want to try to cover as basic as I can, but also go from zero to something that looks good. So we're not going to go over too much. I would recommend looking at plugins for Cordova. They open up possibilities for things like taking photos and dealing with the file system that we're not going to go over. All right. The next piece, if we look at what I did, we then added the Android platform, which allows you to actually publish to a phone or to an emulator of some kind. And then once you get in there, the commands that we end up using are Cordova build and Cordova run Android for tonight. Let's see if I can't stop sharing here and switch over. Okay, so we currently don't have any questions being asked. I'm gonna pause the video for a second and let people see if just go check some of the event to make sure no one's trying to join. But I will leave the source up so everyone can see it. All right. All right, real quickly, we'll just take a look here. Make sure if anybody is watching this. And as I said, if you're interested in joining the Hangout, please do look at the Google Plus event. I've put a link on there if you'd like to join. Like I said, I do want this to be an interactive session more than just me talking. So I'd love to see questions or anything like that that you might have. All right. So let's get started. Once you've got all those things done, the next step is to get some of these other components ready, which let's go ahead and look. If you're not familiar with Bower, and I don't know if that's the exact pronunciation, I'm sure some people say Bower, but we'll look at what that gives us. So when we install the default directories, we end up with just a www directory, and it'll have an index file and some asset directories for JavaScript images and style sheets. I've put a bower.json file in here, and so you can use bower init will give you a basis for that. And then what you're going to do is you could really copy these directly from the repo that I've put out there and put them in your bower.json, and then do bower install, and it will go grab these dependencies. I'll give you a little caveat that if you're behind a firewall, sometimes it will block protocols like Git, which is being used by Bower to go grab these. Just be aware too that sometimes people have run into problems where they are targeting a specific version of these libraries, and so Polymer and Core Elements and Paper Elements, these will give us the scaffolding that we need to be able to generate something interesting in Polymer. So if I were to go in here, let's see, we can do in here. The default is obviously to have these things in here, and we're looking at how if we do bower.init, that you can get a basic, if I just click through here, you'll end up with a basic setup for your initialization, and it'll give you a bower.json file, which, so if you were going to go copy this, you just copy from the comma, just copy that object, and let's switch over to the directory here. So right after the ignore, we just say copy that in, and then from the command line we can just do bower install. This may not work. I'm behind a firewall right now, where it sometimes will not grab these things. Oh, well, maybe. We'll see. It'll take a little while. Go grab all the dependencies for those pieces, and it dumps them into an app folder. And so for convenience sake, yeah, and you can see that there. So for convenience, I've moved all the default assets into the app folder, so that relative paths and things like that, I don't really have to worry about them with Bower. And then the files can be run from here by looking for Cordova purposes at this content tag, and you just, normally it would look at index.html. It's relative to the www path, so we add app, and it will just dig into the folder structure to grab those details. All right, so we've got our initial stuff set up. The next piece, of course, is to just get it to run on the phone, and in order to do that, the easiest way to do it is to go to the command line once again, and we'll look here at So I'm in my camp code directory, and Cordova, I believe, will look up folders and down folder. Like if you're in a lower directory, it'll still work. And so if I say Cordova build, it's going to go ahead and build based on the platforms that I've added, and you can call out specific platforms and do a little more granular builds too. But and it puts in a whole bunch of things that it will then go use to do the Android app itself. You can also, you don't have to do the build unless you're, trying to distribute the APK for Android. But in essence, you just take the what it gives you, and I think you can kind of produce your distributable APK from that. But if instead I do Cordova run Android, we'll go ahead and I'll switch here to. Let's see if this works here. Alright, so I'm going to stop sharing, and hopefully what's on your screens is the phone. Alright, and so then the next step, I'm going to hit enter here to do Cordova run Android so that you can see what happens. And in no time at all, it's building it, and then at some point here it will then say, right, I'm pushing it to the phone. So you can't see it. There's a USB cable connected from my laptop where the code is to my phone. It will also attempt, if it can't find a phone, attempt to install it to an emulator. And the only catch with that is I've noticed it's really slow most of the time. All right, so there is the Polymer and Cordova app that we have. All right, so we'll switch back here. And so Polymer and Cordova app, that's basic HTML. So we've gone from 0 to app in 18 minutes, and that's with me talking and a little bit of a delay. So hopefully you can see the benefit of this. Let's see, I'm going to skip over to the live feed again, and if anyone does have any questions, hopefully if people are watching this, I'd love to have feedback on any questions that you might have up to now. From here on out, most of what we will be doing is really just web-based. So we're going to be looking at HTML, web components, and the Polymer libraries. All right, so it looks like we do have a couple of people viewing. So from here, if you go watch some introductions to web components or Polymer, the next piece, so the essence of web components, it boils down to a few things. There are HTML imports, there are custom elements, there's shadow DOM, and I feel like there's one more I'm missing, and I always forget it. HTML imports, shadow DOM, custom elements, and templating. So with Polymer, it kind of wraps those so that it becomes a lot easier to produce web components with all those features. And so what you'll start to see as you develop an app is the basic structure of a Polymer is going to involve a bunch of HTML imports that essentially sets up your dependencies. So in this case, all Polymer apps have to start with, well, not all of them, I'll correct that. Most Polymer apps, if you're doing web especially and not necessarily caring about mobile app through Cordova, you'll need to include the platform.js, which what it does is it scaffolds some of the features in web components and the requirements like shadow DOM into browsers that may not have those built in already. So Chrome is leading the way on this. As a Google fanboy, of course, I'm always like, oh, why do you use anything else? But I also work for a company that uses IE8. So unfortunately, Polymer we'll confess this right up front, Polymer will not work on IE8 or below, and it's polyfills for most other browsers beyond Chrome. So just be aware that your mileage may vary if you're trying to develop web apps for this. If you can target mobile specifically, I think your success rate will be a lot higher. And then, if you're trying to do mobile with Cordova, I think you'll get even more benefit from that beyond just doing native apps itself. So let's take a look here just to see what you can see in here in this directory structure. Hopefully, and this is a case of feedback would be really good if I can get it about whether or not you can see the code. And I'm going to double check for both of these events that I've posted. Okay, so I don't see any new updates right now. So we have a whole bunch, since we did a Bower and we installed Polymer and the paper elements and the core elements, we have all these cool things that we can tap into. And just to give you a demonstration here, there's some cool things that you can serve up. So, I'm serving this directory, Polymer Bootcamp Polymer, and then I've got my code directory, and then I've got the www directory. We've already seen this, but in there, in the Bower components, I've got all the components that were installed for Polymer and things like that. So one of the examples that they give, let's go back one here, is core animated pages is one of the cooler things that have a lot of effects combined. So we can look at pluggable transitions, so you can do crossfades and cool things like that. You can do icon, so you take this area, the yellow, and transition it up to the top so it looks real cool, and then it goes down. And these things, the code to do this is very minimalistic. So if we look at the source, you'll see, this is the demo, so they've got some documentation that needs to be there. But the basic requirement is include platform.js so that you get the polyfill in the event that the browser doesn't support what you're trying to do. And then they've got, these are essentially the dependencies for it. So it's got core icons, social icons, core toolbar, paper shadow, and core animated pages is the one that that's the basis of this. So you look, they do, you've seen all this type of thing before. They style everything on here. You can extract that to an external style sheet just as easily. And then you'll see Polymer element. So this is where they're creating an element and they're calling it shadow div. And here's shadow DOM has a some type of template, and there it is. And it has content, which if you watch about web components, content is where if you have tags, you can insert the content that the person puts in the tags in there. So then they use this, so they use shadow div. Let's go ahead and just get it highlighted here. So shadow div is here, and this is the card, and they're doing some cool things in here to do transitions and the styling here that comes built in. You'll see some attributes that you may not recognize from just straight HTML, and then here's all the shadow div based. So there's structure here that you'll recognize with some custom elements, and then if we scroll down here, you'll see here's some JavaScript to get things going. And so there's a page selected. If we go back here, so in here you've got one clickable element, and then what you'll see is, so here's page 1 essentially, and then here's page 2. So there's a lot of nesting and things that goes on with some of this, but it's not unmanageable. So let's go back and you can see some other, so you can do some things like list reordering, where I tap it, and one of the cool things, so let's say we wanted to do something like this on a mobile app. So we just happen to have structure to do that. Let's go ahead and take a look. So this is Core Animated Pages list demo. So we can go up here into the source, Core Animated Pages and demos, and here's the list source. So we'll go ahead and open that up, and so we look and we say, okay, so we have platform.js, we need that. So let's go ahead and add platform. Sometimes switching between editors is a bad thing. So we need platform.js. All right, there's that. So we know dependency-wise that's going to work. Just to bootstrap things. So we need that, even though the list HTML includes that, we need it because we also need a few other things. So Core Animated Pages here, really what we can do is we can say, all right, really we'll just take, yes, I would not recommend doing this other than for purposes of a demo, but this can get you started pretty quickly in order to get going. So they have a list demo. So here's the cool thing. So if we do list demo, so if we include this list HTML in ours, and I did not try this beforehand, but I figured no time like the present. And so the relationship, if you look at how this is done, the relationship is an import and then an href, just like if you were doing like a style sheet. And so we can say power components, core animated pages, demos, and list.html. All right, so let's take a look at this and say, okay, in my app here, so this one is called list demo. All right, so if I do list demo like that, let's see what that does. All right, so in here, let's change, we'll just open another one here. And we can close Polymer down. All right, so if we do localhost camp code app, we don't need that, we just want index. Let's see what happens. So without really much code at all, I now have on my app, so this is the mobile, this is what's going to go to the mobile side, but since it's a web app natively, it's working here, so that's great. Let's go ahead and do a Cordova run Android. Let's switch to look at the phone here. Hopefully, let's see, double check here and make sure that switched. All right. All right. So now, and I can get out of this the same way I always get out of any app on the phone. The same would apply if you were doing iOS or whatever too. All right, so I'm going to do Cordova run Android, and hopefully we'll see it get installed. It's building and then it's installing, and you'll see some pop-ups probably. There it goes. All right, and here it comes. So it takes a little while to bootstrap up all the Polymer stuff in this form. If you watch an introduction, there's some stuff they call, or there's an app they call Vulcanize that will help with this. But if, here, get out of the way, little Yeti. So you can see virtually native animation. You may see some lag on that on the video. Really, from here, I'm not seeing much. It feels like a native app. So right off the bat, I took one of the demo Polymer elements and can make something really great. So with that thought in mind, the idea would be that you would take other pieces of the Polymer library, or the core animated pages, or paper elements. So let's take a look at some of those, because some of those are very interesting. So paper elements is the Google has changed with the next version of Android, has changed the way that the design of the UI in Android is. So they've called it material design. If you've been to recent GDG meetings, I've had a little physical sheets that kind of show what they're talking about. But the idea is that you have more of a flat design, as though it were on paper, and things kind of bound to that paper in ways that would be more natural. So, and interactions and things like that go through some type of natural feel. So there's a little bit of depth involved, which is a little different than some other UIs. So there's some cool things in Polymer that you can actually translate into things like an iOS app that you may not have access to otherwise. So let's take a look at some of these. We've been going for half an hour now, and hopefully you've gotten some ideas going. I want to try to get the gears churning for Startup Weekend, specifically for those people who are attending, but also anyone who's been trying to, hey, I have a really great app idea, whether it's a web app or a mobile app. I could use Cordova to make it a mobile app, or hey, Polymer is great. It's got some really great things in it. How can I use it? So let's look at just some of these, the fun ones. So the paper ripple. If we look at that one, let's go to our components, paper ripple, and most of these will have a demo.html. And so here you can see, hopefully, let's increase the font size here so everybody can see it really well. So as I click these, you'll see, hopefully on the video too, you can see at least glimpses of, there's a circle, and so where I click, the circle, the ripple is what it's called, will go out from where I click, giving an idea of, I clicked right here, but the ripple is bounded to this box. I really like the effect. The other thing you'll notice is drop shadows, and those are done also with some paper elements. So here's icons that you might want to use, and these have you can't really see it, but the essence is that the small shape is in a circle, and it's bounded just on a certain radius around the icon. So it gives you kind of a cool effect. This is like this would be the clear background, this would be the filled background. It just gives you, especially for mobile, the idea that I'm tapping right here. It's a little more realistic physically when you tap on something and you see effect go around where you were actually touching. Let's see. Let's find. So paper shadow would be another good one to see, so that you can see some of that depth calculation. So what you're seeing here is let's see if we can highlight the box here. So you can see there is a div here that is styled with a z depth of 0. Here's a z depth of 1, so you get a little bit of shadow. Here's a z depth of 2, a little higher off the page, and so on. And I don't know if this may not be rendering quite right, but So you can see as it goes up, just the drop shadow. And so this comes, if we look at the source for this, this comes with, let's look here. So if we look at, here's paper shadow. So it's just doing a card, div, and then inside that it's saying, all right, put a shadow around it. And then you also have, where's the one we just clicked? So then you have X shadow, and you can see they built a custom element, a custom Polymer element to allow for you to tap and change the Z index. And I'm saying Z index, and I'm probably Z depth. Z index is a legitimate style, but it is not what we're talking about. So the Z depth. And you can see, looking at intros to Polymer, this is how they create the elements. This is a great, the source code is the best place to learn how to do some of the coding. So if you have a custom element you want to make, let's say you had, for example, a rating, you wanted to do like a 5-star rating system. You could make a custom element that includes some icons, and then base the logic on on something similar to this, where you're actually doing some type of tap action, and as you tap, you base the styles of the other icons on which one you tapped on. All right, so I need to shrink this back down so I can see if we have any comments. It doesn't look like I think it says there are 3 viewers currently, so I don't know if anyone's having trouble getting in. Let me, I'd hate to have people not be able to interact here, but I don't see any current updates on the event itself. If anyone does have any questions at this point, please let me know. All right, let's see here. So I'm not seeing any. All right, so we'll just keep going. I don't want to waste anybody's time, so let's go ahead and look at a couple more cool paper element things, and then we'll go ahead and put some things together. Let's see here. Let's look at. We'll do. Didn't really prepare which ones to look at before time. The paper tabs is always a good one too. Tabs is obviously something that people use a lot right now. Tabs. All right. So here you can see this one doesn't have any ink or ripple effect, but you get, it's a tab. So we'll probably put some of these into our app just as a test. And this one has the bar sliding at the bottom, and it goes to the one you click on. And then these have the ripple effect on where you click. Obviously, those are really awesome. People will want those all over the place. This one, you've got some clickable buttons here, and then so it's a massive header, much like you would see in a lot of the apps today. So we'll probably want to take this one. Let's see what that one's called. Core toolbar, medium tall, all right. So, as I mentioned before, one of the other things now that I'm looking at, just to call out, most of these things are responsive. In some cases, the responsive part has not been completely fleshed out for super small screens, but for most people's usage, I think it's probably going to work fine. So let's go ahead and take one of these. So we'll do, I like the massive toolbar here, and let's look at the source for that one. So the demo will tell us what one that is. Medium tall, all right. So you can see here we have paper tabs, and then they've got some extra stuff here. Let's see. That's the wrong one. Core toolbar. There we go. All right. So you may have to look here to see styling that they do based on fonts and things like that. You don't really have to worry about that right now, but let's go ahead and put this in here. And if you've been following along, you know that we need to make sure that we include the core toolbar. Oh no, sorry, paper tabs, right? All right. Let's close some of these down. All right, so in the demo here, so we've got core toolbar. All right, so we need, really for the most part, we need these 4 things. Those are our dependencies, and to use this stuff we have to include those. And so in this case we know core icons, paper tabs, and core toolbar. All right, let's see, did I get everything? All right, let's. And paper icon buttons. All right, so in this case, this will give us, now medium tall, obviously we don't have the style for that, so let's just see what this gives us, and then we can go verify here. All right, so if we go back to our app, you can see we've got basic colors, but we've got the tabs up at the top. So let's ditch this H1 that we've got and just use that. So there's a few things that you can do to remove this extra space, and I'm not going to go into it because you can look on the Polymer. I don't really know it off the top of my head. Someone probably smarter than me would know. If you're watching, feel free to pop in a question or something to give us an answer on that. But in this case, so if we go ahead, that's saved, we can go ahead and Cordova run Android, and we will hopefully switch here. I'm never real sure whether or not I'm getting this right. All right, so now I'll go ahead and Cordova run Android, and we should see this shiny new tab system up at the top of our app. So it's building, and then finally it will install to the phone. For those of you coming on late, hopefully nobody is, and you'll see some pop-ups on the phone, and the app loads in a little bit. So there's some things you can do, like I said, to deal with that load time that's at the beginning. But as you can see, hopefully you can see some of the effects here. So I've got cool transitions and ripples and things like that going. One thing you can't really see, I'm not seeing it on the video very well, but is the yellow line at the bottom moves also. All right, good deal. So I'll switch back here. All right, so we've got the the basics of this app going. So if you had other pieces, I would guess for startup weekend, in preparation for that, definitely go through and look at the demos for each of these things, because it'll give you kind of an idea of what's available. You can also look online for people who have done other types of web components or Polymer custom elements. And I don't think it's in here. Let's see. There's some that Google has developed even for, like, if you wanted to use maps, there's some custom Google elements that you can quickly link to Google Maps with just one custom tag, one node, and then you just put in like coordinate system or whatever features you want, and that will give you what you need. Just realized everyone's probably looking at this saying, I don't know what you're typing. Let me increase the font size there. Hopefully that's a little more legible. So, all right, so now we've got our tabs. So we can change, this is simple, easy to use HTML. We can change the title of our app to Bootcamp 2014. I'll have to go back and revise the video in a year. And we can say, maybe your app is, like I said, a rating app. You can say ratings. This is just common setup, right? And maybe you have history or profile, we'll say. So just two, very basic. I don't want to go overboard. All right, so in that case now we can go look at it, see what we've got. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at, let's go back to Polymer. And if we look at what they're doing, so in some of these, the resources that they've got, they have, let's see, that's not what I want. So they have all the demos are here. There's what I was looking for. So they have a tutorial that you can look at on GitHub and get the source for. I would recommend downloading the starter project. It gives you some cool things that you can do. But what I'm looking for, let's see here. All right, so this gives you some more details about what some of these, the attributes on the tags mean. But what I'm looking for is self-end. I think that's the one. I think that's already there. Okay, so let's say we wanted to toggle between these. If we go look at the documentation for the elements, so this is paper tabs. You can see, so in this case, a paper tab is used to delineate the individual tab itself. This doesn't have to do with what content is shown. So let's go ahead and show what happens. So if I have the tabs, and then maybe I have, oops, in the wrong button. Underneath those have some type of, let's pick, so let's go ahead and use that paper shadow. So we need to grab paper shadow, and we can even do this. Alright, so now we go back. So we know that we need some other stuff in here in our dependencies. Both of these. The nice thing with some of the custom elements is you can bring in style sheets as well. So like if you had themes for your if you wanted to switch between themes, you could do that pretty easily. All right, so in that case, we have paper shadow, and we don't need that one anymore. So maybe we liked, let's see, we'll do a little higher here. We'll do, all right. So we'll look at putting, so underneath our toolbar, let's say, for example, we did something like this. All right, so now let's see what we get. All right, so in this case, you'll notice you can't see anything here. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that we have styles from that. Let's see here. So if we look here, here's card. So in most cases, if you go ahead and do this, and take the style from that, once again, we can look. Okay, so there's our box. And you'll notice it doesn't show or hide based on any of that. But we did see go back on these other links that we were on. So in here, if we look at something like this, we can zoom that down here. So you can see in here, that one doesn't have tabs. Let's see, I think one of these does. Hopefully this is giving you guys some ideas. I'm trying to remember where the demo is for tabs. But essentially, we're going to look at how they do the page transitions, and I believe that's where we'll see these. I'm going to go look for any questions that people might have still, and then we'll probably wrap this up. I do want to try to show you the extent to what you can do and show how it looks like a native feel with something a little more robust than what I've done here. So we'll actually look at putting the sample app and just look at how that transitions from being, great web experience to it's a great mobile experience. So in order to do that, if you look, they have downloading the starter app project, and once again, I'll just say that this is a great way to learn some of the elements and things like that. And so let's see here. The finished project, as you can see here, has a bunch of things in it. So we'll take all this stuff here, post service, yep. So the only thing we don't need so in here, so we find our code directory, we can virtually paste over this. Notice I didn't grab an index. All right, so finished in here has the index. So we'll go ahead and look at the code here. All right, so now we've got Bower components. So they have components. We don't really need those since we've installed the Bower components, but just realize that the references that it's using are going to include that. So in the finished one, you can see, hopefully, let me go ahead and stretch this out because it doesn't look like any questions have come in. So you can see, once again, just to see what this app does, you'll be able to hopefully be amazed at what they've done. Platform.js is the scaffolding, the polyfill to get in the web components and some of the things that other browsers may not support. And then you've got this core header panel, core toolbar. So they're doing some cool things. Here's the paper tabs, and then post list. And so this one, if we look at what that is, this is a custom Polymer element that they've made, and because it's a custom element, they have to include Polymer, which any other element includes this also. And then they've got some post service and postcards. So they've got some other things that contribute to the display. So one of the cool things with Cordova is, because I dropped this in, I can actually point it right now to app finished and just go ahead and we'll go ahead and compile that to see what it looks like. And we'll switch over here to the phone. Probably need to close it. All right. I believe it's loading, yep. All right, so you can hopefully see this. I'm hoping it's not too blurry for everybody, but if we can tap on things, there are the tabs here. So here's content switching for the tabs. Scrolling. And here it's done, so it's built in. It's got a JSON feed to track who I've favorited. Go back to all. Maybe favorite a couple down here. So if you have lists or anything like that, this is a great place to look to see how they do this. But once again, you can see it's essentially just filtering a list. And so let's go ahead and look at that code, and then I'll kind of pause for any questions that may come up, and then we can call it a night. All right. So we look at this code. So the styling is not as important in this case. Obviously, as you're doing your startup weekend prototypes or things like that, styling can come after the fact, which is nice, but you can also make your components specifically styled as you go, and it's not as difficult to go back and fix it. So we've got here a tab listener, and so the core select is, as you can see under, let's see here. So core select, if we look at that, is a way to dictate things like things that are choosable. And so they're saying, all right, when tabs is selected, when one of the tabs is selected, show which one is selected. So you look at in here, list.show. So list is our post list here. So post list gives us some type of template where we have for each of the things. So you may recognize this from handlebars. If you look at the introduction videos, this is the syntax that's used. It's similar. And this is how they do, like an ng repeat would be equivalent in Angular. It's just looping over things in posts. And so if you go back, let's look at in here, I believe, let's see here. Post service provides so it's going to this JSON file, which is under the API. So they just have, this is a great way to mock up data. So you have a JSON object and you can just iterate over it, just in the same way that they did in here. And you set that up so you say, here's a service. The post service provides some type of core AJAX, which is how in Polymer speak you dig into services like that. This allows you to prototype really fast because you can just use a JSON object that you have customized already with the response you want. So you don't have to worry about actually having a data service in some type of server-side language. If you did, that's great. It can do that too. And they've customized this a little bit. So core AJAX has some functionality, and then they're providing some extra bits here to do slicing and things like that. All right. Well, I think that's about it. Let me look and see if we have any questions or anybody is on here. Doesn't look like anybody else is here. It does look like we have 2 viewers still going, unless they're counting the 2 systems that I'm using right now. I will be checking the event, and also I'm available via email, lukederry@gmail.com. So if you have any questions, or you need me to look something up, or you just have need of me for whatever reason, let me know. I will say this, since this startup weekend is unique in that it's targeting women, I am looking for a female cohort to either co-organize this group, the Google Developer Group, or potentially be a diversity lead so that we can do some more meetings that are specifically focused for female attendees, but not exclusive necessarily. We could definitely just do whatever. If you're interested, don't think that you need to be a technical, like a developer. Really, it's more about the social, the organizing the meetings and things like that, and getting space. So there are many GDG women leads around the world that may not have developer skills, but they have really great organizing skills. So if you're interested in that, also contact me. And we do have a Polymer-focused event coming up November 1st at American Underground in Durham on Main Street. And if you're interested in that, I'll be sending out some details about that. And anyone who comments about this video, I'll give a discount code to. I'm not going to say it here. I don't want to give anything away. But it will be Polymer focused with, it's called DevFest, and the focus is on Polymer, but we invite anybody from any type of development environment to come. It's a fun time. Hopefully we'll have a good time. This is a new venue for us, but I'll send out details about that later. Thank you all for watching. I hope Startup Weekend goes well for you, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thanks.